Welcome back to Expansive, and for many, the next thing we're going to talk about is probably the highlight of E3, and that is Sony's PlayStation conference. It takes place at Monday, June the 12th at 6 p.m. PT, 9 p.m. ET, and 2 a.m. BST. And there is a lot going to be on show. It's one of the biggest conferences of the year. It's one everyone always looks forward to because the last few years at E3, Sony have absolutely knocked it out of the park. They've had one big hit after another. Having said that, this year is very interesting because Xbox came out all guns blazing this weekend. They announced tons of big third-party games. They showed some real statement of intent for their first party, potentially for next generation, including the acquisition of the likes of Ninja Theory and Compulsion Games and Playground Games. Xbox really came to play this year in a big way, and there is a lot of interesting stuff unveiled during that press conference that could impact the Sony one as well. Having said that, what we do know for sure about Sony is they're going to go into deep dives on 4 of their big titles, probably their last big 4 titles before next gen, and the first of which is the one that everyone seems to be talking about is Death Stranding. We know that we're going to get a new report around what is happening with this title because, I mean, this was revealed back in 2016, and as of now we don't have a release date for it. We barely know anything about it. We haven't seen any gameplay. It's been all cutscenes and animations and things like that, so it's about time we saw a bit of gameplay, and I think Kojima Productions and his team, they're well aware of that, as are Sony, and I expect to see the first gameplay of Death Stranding tonight. It's going to be a really exciting moment for the industry. As we know, this is Hideo Kojima's first title with Kojima Productions since his issues with Konami, shall we say. As I say, it was revealed back in 2016, and it features Norman Reedus, The Walking Dead fame, Mads Mikkelsen of Hannibal fame, and Guillermo del Toro, the world-famous director, who he's a pretty recognizable dude, and he's won an Oscar, just cause. So Reedus and Kojima worked on Silent Hills before Konami canned it. It's perhaps better known to you as PT, as we actually got a live demo, so it actually appeared on the PlayStation Store, then it was removed because Konami wanted it taken away. So as a result, not many people actually own it anymore because you couldn't re-download it if you deleted it, and if you kept it on your hard drive, you kept it forever, I guess. So a lot of people are never going to get rid of that now. So yeah, that was a project that was worked on between Reedus and Kojima, and this is their next project, something that actually will get released and is exclusive to PlayStation 4. I guess that Reedus seems to be the hero in the tale, where Mads appears to be the antagonist in the story, and it suggests the game makes sense at 4 hours after playing it. So I guess you have to invest quite a bit of time before you understand what the hell is going on, because quite frankly, I've watched all the cutscenes. There are lots of little hints and tips in there, a little bit of cryptic clues, but generally speaking, I don't really know what's going on. I don't think a lot of other people do either. But it has been teased for years, and there's even fan belief that it is tied into Metal Gear somehow. I somehow doubt that. I think that's far-reaching just a little bit, but that just shows you the kind of theories that are out there about Death Stranding, and there's a lot of them, so if you want to spend a bit of time doing that, you can totally do that, because it's a pretty fascinating deep dive. But talking about deep dives, Sony are really deep diving on these 4 big titles, and Death Stranding is certainly going to be one of them. Apparently, what we do know about the game is the death mechanics will see players taken to an interactive purgatory to gather items before returning to the world. Death will never pull you out of the game, Kojima says, meaning death will never leave you stranded. So that sort of makes a bit of sense with the title. We also know that multiplayer is confirmed to be a big part of the game. What it is, however, is a total mystery. We're not expecting something akin to Metal Gear. Perhaps it'll be something more along the lines of Dark Souls. We don't really know. We also know, according to Kojima, the thumbs up baby inside Norman Reedus, yeah, really, I did say that right, apparently has a huge role to play in the game. So I guess we'll find out a lot more about that. But yeah, we're expecting to see the first gameplay for Death Stranding at E3 this year. It's going to be a big one. Probably get a release date too, I'm imagining 2019. But yeah, Death Stranding, it's got to be coming close now, folks. And we look forward to it, because this will be one of the big talking points of this year's show, no doubt about it. Or perhaps it won't be. Perhaps it will pale in comparison to yet another Sony exclusive, a little game called The Last of Us Part 2. Now, this was confirmed officially last year. Much hype, much love, much excitement, stole the show for many people's E3 and is likely to do so yet again. Of course, it's a huge sequel to one of the greatest games of all time. We don't know where Joel is at this point, but we did see Ellie in last year's trailer playing a guitar. We know she's a bit older now at the age of 19, and in the trailer all we saw her say, apparently to Joel, or we don't know again, "I'm going to kill every last one of them," as she sits among lots of dead bodies playing her guitar. It was really creepy. E3, it made us think, what the hell is going on? We've had questions ever since. We did see a new trailer at the Paris Game Show, which was extremely graphic and focused on a different set of characters. Some survivalists dragging a woman through a rain-soaked wasteland. They ask her where the other apostate is, and when she refuses to tell them, the woman says, clip her wings, and the two people that are holding her proceed to take a hammer and basically beat her arm senseless. It's pretty graphic. It makes me cringe every time I see it, but Payback is a bitch, as an axe is then put in one of their heads a bit later on by some other survivalists who are coming around with a bow and arrow. It's all a bit confusing. I don't know where this fits in the actual overall storyline. Who these characters are is anyone's guess, but we're almost certain to hear much more at E3. There is going to be a greater focus on multiplayer from what we understand. The Last of Us multiplayer was one of the big surprises about the game. The single player itself was extraordinary, but the multiplayer worked really, really well. And there is even some crazy rumors, I'm not entirely sure I believe them, that The Last of Us Part 2 could release this year. I mean, can you imagine? We've already got a year of Red Dead Redemption 2. We've got the likes of Just Cause 4 was just announced. We've got Spider-Man, which we're going to talk about in just a sec. You know, this year is already pretty packed. Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which sounds like that's coming out this year. And then to have The Last of Us Part 2 as well? Surely not. Surely not. This surely is a 2019 game, but who knows? I guess we'll find out at E3. This is obviously going to be a massive part of Sony's conference, full deep dive into it from Naughty Dog. Very excited to see what the future holds for this IP. It's probably going to kick off the show, to be honest. Who knows? Because it ended the last one. Either way, Last of Us Part 2, big talking point for this year's E3, no doubt about it. Now, a Sony game that's floated a little bit under the radar, purely because we don't really know much about it, but the studio involved in it is certainly catching our attention, is The Ghost of Tsushima, which is from Sucker Punch of infamous and Sly Cooper fame. Now, this is a samurai adventure that was unveiled last year during Paris Game Week, and you are a samurai who fights in the Tsushima region of Japan, fighting against various forces. Use stealth and combat in a feudal Japanese setting, and it's a third-person action adventure with narrative and traversal mechanics. We know very little about this, other than the fact, as I say, it's from Sucker Punch, so that's a huge statement of intent. It's a massive studio. It looks like a really exciting game. We're going to have a full deep dive into this at E3 as confirmed by Sony. Very much looking forward to seeing more about this. As I say, we know very little at this point. What we do know a bit more about, and game that's releasing in just a few months, so excited, is Insomniac's Spider-Man, releasing on September the 7th. Not long to wait now, guys. It feels like forever that we first knew about this game, and oh my gosh, it's nearly here. I can't wait to get my hands on it. It's the long-awaited open-world Spider-Man game, and all the details got blown open a few weeks back by Game Informer. There was a big interview, so you can get all that information online elsewhere. We are expected to see a new trailer at E3 to give us a bit more details as well, perhaps some exclusive stuff that we didn't know about. What we do know, you get to play as both Peter Parker and Spider-Man from a third person. There's all parkour through an open world New York City. There's web slinging. You can traverse by underground metro. You get to use all of Spidey's gadgets and special powers and environmental combat. Mary Jane is a playable character in the game. There's going to be a wide array of Spider-Man villains, a bit like the Batman Arkham series. It is one of this year's biggest games, exclusive to PS4. It looks incredible. We can't wait to play it. There's DLC also been announced as well, which we talked a bit about in a previous video, and you can find out about that on our channel. Wow, Spider-Man from Insomniac is going to be such a great game, and you know what? It's very easy could be a Game of the Year contender. There are so many of those at this point. We've already had some fantastic games in 2018. We've got loads of big ones to come, and this is going to be one of the big talking points of E3 as well. People getting proper hands-on with the Spider-Man Insomniac game this year, a couple of months ahead of its release. Huge game for Sony, and really does show you what a generation they've had. And I think I highlighted this in a previous video, and I'm going to say it again. Arguably one of the best, if not the best, first-party lineups of any generation ever. Really foregrounded by Spider-Man coming out this year, because I mean, I haven't played it, but I'm pretty sure, looking at everything I've seen, all the previews I've heard, everything, this is something special, guys, and it's gonna be a big part of their show this year. And I think all the previews are pretty much going to tell you what you already kind of know. This is going to be amazing. Can't wait to see more about this. Can't wait to play it. Very excited. Now, this is the beauty of Sony's conference and of most conferences. We knew about these 4 big games. The 4 big deep dives were expected. What else is anyone's guess at this point? It really is. We can draw some logical conclusions based on on what Sony have talked about in the past. But yeah, this is a pretty open show. So last year they unveiled a Medieval remaster. We're pretty sure we're going to hear something more about that this year. It's obviously based on a classic PS1 franchise. We don't see much about it in a very long time, but the remaster is expected. Could even drop this year, who knows, could be a next year title, but we are expected to hear a bit more about the Medieval remaster. We pretty much just got a logo last year. We also found out for the first time a couple of years back about Shenmue 3 and the Final Fantasy VII remake through Sony's E3 show. We wouldn't be surprised to get a bit more information on both of those titles. We know Shenmue 3 has now been delayed to next year. It's now been published by Koch Media, so we know a bit more about Shenmue 3 than we do Final Fantasy VII's remake, but we heard about both of these games for the first time through Sony's E3 conference, so we suspect that Sony may have a bit more information to share where Xbox didn't. Dreams VR being developed by Media Molecule. That's obviously a big VR title that a lot of people are excited about. It's a really creative title, and it could be the real system seller for PSVR as needed. It's a big first party title for them, no question about it. Very interested to see a bit more from that. Could be another game that releases this year. PSVR could certainly do with another big hit this year. We expect to hear a lot more about that. Now, an interesting one that's been doing the rounds is there's a rumor that Bloodborne 2 is going to get revealed at some point soon. I'm not so sure it'll be at this year's conference. I don't think Sony need to quite jump on that just yet. I think they've got enough in the bank to really keep us tied over until next gen. I have a feeling Bloodborne 2 could be a next gen launch title, because if you looked at Xbox's huge conference on the weekend, the dominoes are in place for next gen. They talked about the studios they've acquired. They already mentioned it basically in name, next gen. We're working on the next generation of Xbox consoles. Then Bethesda highlighted it again during their conference. They mentioned that Starfield is a next gen single player RPG, and the next game after Starfield, The Elder Scrolls 6. So that says to me that next gen is coming a lot sooner than perhaps any of us even realize. I wouldn't be surprised if we got reveals next year. It depends on the sort of the release patterns of games over the next, well, actually I think it really depends on this Sony press conference. It will tell us a lot about the future. It will tell us whether Sony even mentioned next gen by name. Bear in mind, Sony did not announce the PlayStation 4 at E3. They announced it on their own terms at their own event. It was a massive event they set up and did of their own volition. So they're not waiting for E3 necessarily to unveil a PlayStation 5, but it will also tell us what their sort of their release schedule looks like, because it looks to me like their 2019 is packed. I mean, we already know that Days Gone is coming in February 2019. That's a lock. That was confirmed ahead of E3, and we're sure to know more about Days Gone during the show. But I mean, they've got 4 massive games they've already told us about. We've just highlighted. I can't imagine all 4 of those appearing in 2018. Maybe one will surprise us, but Death Stranding to me looks like a 2019 title, as does The Last of Us Part 2, The Ghost of Tsushima, again, another one. Spider-Man we do know is coming this year, but that's 3 huge 2019 titles, which almost certainly would take PS4 to the end of 2019 for a 2020 potential release for PS5. We know for sure PS5 is coming very soon though, as is Xbox 2, as is all that development ahead of those games, because they're already talking about it, guys. They're talking about next gen as if it's coming sooner rather than later. So my theory is Sony don't need to talk about Bloodborne 2 now. They've got enough to show us to talk about. This might be a semi-quiet show in that regard, because they don't have big titles they want to talk to us. They want to save them. They want to make sure that the PS5 continues the momentum of the PS4 with big titles at launch, because let's face it, guys, they didn't announce it at Xbox's showcase, but we know for a damn fact that Fable is being made by Playground Studios. They announced that Playground are working on a big game at E3. They didn't say what it was going to be. It's Fable, and Fable is going to be an Xbox launch title for their next gen system. That is a huge exclusive that Xbox will have immediately, and with Compulsion and Ninja Theory and other studios that they've acquired over time, rare in their books as well. You know, there's a lot of big stuff that Xbox have cooking up, and they've basically given us just a taste of that. So, you know, Sony are working on similar things. You know, Sony don't want to give up their market lead position right now because they've dominated this gen. They don't want to lose that, and Xbox are much more prepared with Phil Spencer at the helm to launch a better, stronger system next time. But what I'm saying is, do expect Bloodborne 2 maybe as a next gen launch title, because that is a huge first party game that Sony can just drop. And it's established IP now. It's a very popular title. They don't need to announce Bloodborne 2. They could, but they won't. I doubt they might. Who knows? But I would say it's in the bank and it will come. We know Shadows died twice, which was revealed during Sony's show. It has been shown off also during Xbox from Software. Speaking about them, of course. We know that's coming. That's probably a this gen title because it was shown during the Xbox showcase. So we've seen that already. We might see it again at Sony. They might reveal some exclusive details. They might some stuff we didn't know about before, but that would be cool. We know Blue Point Games are working on a remake after Shadow of the Colossus. Maybe the Demon Souls remakes, maybe something else entirely. Maybe they're working on the Medieval remake. Who's to say? But Blue Point Games are working on something and they've announced it's a remake. Shadow of the Colossus was a huge hit for them and for Sony, and maybe we'll see our first glimpse of what that is. That may be a PS4 title, that may be a PS5 title. At this point, this is where we are, and this is where on the gen's life cycle now. Anything you see at E3 from this point forward may not necessarily be a PS4 game, and I think it's important to keep that in the back of your mind. Sony may just announce that something is being made. They may not say what platform it is for. Worth bearing that in mind. We may see a new iteration of the PlayStation VR that's been rumored. Again, that could be something that's held off until next gen. We have seen one new iteration already with less cables. We may see another version again, which is a bit more user-friendly for the consumer, because it seems to me like Sony will probably announce more PSVR stuff during this conference than anything else. What they'll announce, who knows? We've already seen quite a few big PSVR announcements, including Tetris Effect and Beat Saber, but we expect to see a bit more from PSVR at this showcase, because Sony, I think, not only really want to prove that PlayStation VR is in a good place, but they also want to show that they've got continued support for the hardware. Let's mention Tetris Effect for VR was revealed from the Rez creator Tetsuya Mitsuji. That was ahead of E3. We also know that Days Gone is arriving in February. Again, that was revealed. We're probably expecting a few more details of Days Gone at the E3 showcase. Beat Saber, of course, was confirmed. That can release this year. There is also, we do know that there's Red Dead Redemption 2 PS4 exclusivity. That's been mentioned by Rockstar. We don't know what that is, but it seems that PlayStation have acquired something. So yeah, we're expecting a bit more details on that. Of course, we know Call of Duty Black Ops 4 was revealed. Sony currently have the Call of Duty exclusive, so we'll probably see a bit of what that might be at E3, and maybe some more exclusives from some big third-party titles. We saw Devil May Cry 5 got revealed over the weekend, as did Dying Light 2, Fallout 76. We may see some exclusive deals have been struck there. It didn't appear to be the case with Xbox, even though the Xbox showed details from both games at their showcase. We also know Monster Hunter World, maybe that'll have something. Street Fighter 5 is a PlayStation 4 exclusive. And of course, there's been ongoing rumors that we'll see God of War DLC. Now, I have a theory about this. Having finished God of War very recently, I won't spoil the game, don't worry. What I will say is I feel that God of War is going to be a trilogy. I think God of War 2 could be another PS5 launch title. I think if God of War does get DLC, it won't continue the story arc, because I think that's an arc that needs to be continued in another God of War game. It'll likely be score attacks, it'll likely be a score attack DLC, or it'll be something that involves kind of maybe a new island, maybe some new challenges, maybe a few more Valkyries to fight, or maybe it'll be some collectibles to find. If there's going to be a DLC, it's been said that there's not going to be one, but then there's been maybe there's been some umming and ahhing since. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was, but don't expect it to be story-based as such. If it is story-based, it might focus on one of the sub-characters, which might give you a bit of context into God of War 5. I do have a theory on what that could be. Perhaps I'll do a separate video on that to discuss some of my theories of what a God of War DLC could look like, if it isn't already revealed at E3, of course, and then it makes my video completely superfluous. However, don't necessarily expect story DLC. I think that will be reserved for a future God of War game. I think we're looking at a trilogy of God of War games. I don't want to get into spoiler territory, but I'm not sure about God of War DLC is all I'm going to say. I'm not sure. And that hopefully covers it. It could be a busy one. I think Sony is one of the most mysterious ones, as Xbox was before it. We don't really know what to expect. We probably have a better picture now because we saw a lot of big third-party games got unveiled at Xbox's showcase, but we also expect some surprises too. And obviously don't forget, of course, that before that there will be the Square Enix and the Ubisoft conference. They'll likely unveil stuff which might then get shown at the PlayStation conference that we don't know about just yet. Yeah, exciting times ahead, guys. E3 is really in full swing now. We hope you've been enjoying these videos and you've been enjoying the conferences. Any comments, leave them down below. And we've got one left. Arguably what some people are saying, the one that's likely to seal the show. It's Nintendo, guys. We'll see you for the last one.